Anger. We've all felt it, right? It can be anything from a tiny flicker of irritation to just full-blown rage. But have you ever stopped to think about where it really comes from? And more importantly, what are we supposed to do with it? Today, we're going to dig into the hidden roots of anger and explore some really powerful ways to manage it. Let's get right into it. You know, it's funny how it can all start with something so small, so completely trivial, that you almost have to laugh about it later. Our source material tells this story about a huge fight that broke out over a paper towel, seriously. One person wanted to save it, the other just wanted a clean counter. And things got so heated that one of them finally just said, "I didn't expect to get an inquisition over a paper towel." It's just a perfect snapshot of how a tiny little spark can absolutely ignite a fire. But, you know, we can laugh about the paper towel, but we have to pivot from that to something way more serious. Because as our source material puts it, and this is pretty blunt, anger is just one letter away from danger. This is a seriously powerful force, and it can have some truly destructive consequences if we don't understand it and learn how to manage it. And believe me, this isn't some small fringe issue. The sheer scale of the problem is kind of staggering. I mean, look at these stats from our source. 1 in 5 Americans struggles with anger management. Enrollment in anger management courses, it's booming. Road rage incidents have surged across the country, and the demand for counselors who specialize in this stuff is at an all-time high. So this isn't just a personal problem, it's a huge societal challenge. Okay, so if we're gonna tackle this, we have to understand it first. What even is anger, really? Let's break down how it builds from just a simple feeling into something way more physical, way more powerful. The philosopher Dallas Willard gives this incredible definition. He says anger isn't just a thought, it's a feeling that seizes us, like physically grabs hold of our body, and it pushes us, it impels us toward action. And that action is usually interfering with or even harming whatever or whoever got in our way. So at its core, it's a reaction to having our will, our desire, blocked. And we all know this feeling, right? The source describes it perfectly. You can feel it rising. It starts somewhere deep inside and it just grows and builds this pressure until it reaches your mouth. And right there, in that moment, you've got a choice. Are you going to let it out or are you going to find another way to deal with it? Now, here's the thing. Not all anger is created equal. Our source breaks it down into 2 main types. First, you've got what they call quickly blazing anger. Think about someone bumping your grocery cart. You get a flash of annoyance, you're irritated for a second, and then it's gone. But that second type, it's way more insidious. It's the settled, abiding anger. This is the kind that takes root. It grows with resentment, and it often starts looking for revenge. So where does this come from? Especially that deeper, more dangerous, settled kind of anger. Why do we even get angry in the first place? Let's dig down and see if we can uncover some of the hidden roots. Our source points to 5 really common roots. These can be things we learned as kids, like growing up in an angry family. Or they can be tied to the deep pain of past abuse. Sometimes it's about current frustrations, like when our basic needs aren't being met. Or maybe it's a reaction to feeling controlled. And a big one, lashing out when we're actually just scared. Let's take a closer look at a couple of these. Let's start with our upbringing. For anyone who grew up in an angry home, that environment can become a kind of blueprint for how you deal with life. This quote from the source material just says it all. Although I left the problem, I took the problem with me. You can physically leave a place, but those emotional habits, they are so much harder to escape. You think you're finally free, but you've packed the problem up and taken it with you. Another huge one is unmet needs. I mean, think about it. We all have these totally legitimate basic needs, right? We need rest. We need to feel appreciated. We need encouragement and laughter and just the freedom to be ourselves. When those fundamental things are constantly denied or ignored, it can create this deep well of frustration that just bubbles up as anger. And then there's fear. This is a primary driver of anger. When we feel threatened, I'm talking about our status, our security, even our ego. Anger is often our go-to defense mechanism. The source uses the story of King Saul. He wasn't just annoyed that David was popular. He was terrified of losing his kingdom. And that deep fear is what turned into a murderous rage. Okay, so we've looked at what anger is and where it comes from. Now for the most important part. What can we actually do about it? Let's pivot to some solutions, some really timeless wisdom for managing this incredibly powerful emotion. Benjamin Franklin he absolutely nails it with this quote. It's such a stark reminder of the consequences, isn't it? That initial burst of anger that feels so justified in the moment. How often does it end in regret and shame over what we said or did? The evangelist Billy Sunday had this powerful metaphor. Someone apparently told him, "Oh, I just blow up and then it's all over." And he replied, "So does a shotgun, and look at the damage it leaves behind." Wow, that's a striking reminder that even if the feeling passes quickly for you, the impact you have on other people can be devastating, and it can last a long, long time. So what's a practical strategy? Well, check out what Abraham Lincoln used to do. When he was really irritated with someone, he would sit down and write this fiery, insulting first draft of a letter. He'd get all the venom out on paper. And then he'd tear it up, and he'd write a second, much more measured and tactful response. He processed the feeling privately before he chose his public action. And this right here, this is the crucial takeaway. Lincoln's story shows us the power of creating a little bit of space between the emotion and the response. That initial feeling of anger, it might be automatic, but the action you take, that is always, always a choice. You can vent the feeling privately, write it down, talk to a friend, but you are the one who gets to decide what you do next. And that brings us to the most empowering part of this whole conversation. It's the power of choice. It really all comes down to taking personal responsibility for how you respond to that initial feeling. The source material asks this incredibly direct, kind of piercing question, and I want you to really think about it for a second. How many days, how many years of your life have you wasted being angry? How much energy have you burned on things that were totally trivial, or on trying to control people you were never going to be able to control? This is all about taking your power back. It is so easy to blame other people for our frustration, for our anger, but this quote is such a powerful reminder we are the architects of our own lives. If you don't like your life and you don't like your schedule, you made it, and you're the only one that can change it. So let's end with this one critical clarification, because it's so important. The feeling of anger itself, it's not the problem. It's not a sin. It's a natural human emotion. It can even be a really valuable signal that something is wrong. The real issue, and the place where we have all the power, is in the choice of what we do with that feeling. So look, anger doesn't have to control you. It doesn't get to write your story for you. You have the power to choose a different path. The only question left is, what's your next chapter going to be?